I ran the factory floor for 22 years without a single major accident, not one. And on a rainy Monday morning, they thanked me with a manila folder. Patricia from HR slid it across the table like it was a menu. Leonard Wright, the new operations director, 4 months in, press shirt, clean hands, nodded along like he understood what he was doing. Kenny, Patricia began, her tone the kind used when someone's pet dies. We're restructuring, consolidating senior roles, market pressure, operational alignment. I opened the folder. Severance package, 2 weeks of transition, half my pension vested, the rest trickling in over monthly installments. A polite smile, a signature line. The company logo at the top was new. They'd updated it last year without telling any of us who wore steel toes. Your replacement starts tomorrow, Patricia added. Jason Weber. He's got a business degree from Oklahoma State, very promising. I closed the folder, ran my fingers along the wood grain in the conference room table. I didn't speak, just nodded once. Leonard exhaled like the hard part was over. On the drive home, I took the long way, past the old refinery where my father worked, before they shipped jobs south and erased his name with a clean sweep of paperwork. He always said, "Kenny, a man's worth isn't in what he says. It's in what he builds." I built something at Western Plains, a culture, a record, a way of working that made sure people went home with all 10 fingers and 2 eyes. That night, I set my boots by the door, the same pair I'd worn every day for the past 6 years. Scuffed leather, oil-stained soles, the kind of boots you earn. I didn't rage, I didn't beg. But something settled behind my ribs as I turned off the porch light. A quiet certainty. They thought they were saving money, but what they'd really done was light a fuse they couldn't see. Jason Weber showed up in a collared shirt and loafers, 28 years old, eager, clipboard in hand, checking notes from a tablet. He shook my hand with too much confidence and said he'd already reviewed all the efficiency opportunities on the floor. I handed him a pair of safety glasses and steel-toed boots. "Tour first," I said. "Metrics later." For 2 weeks I walked him through every machine, every shift pattern, every nuance that doesn't live on a spreadsheet. I showed him which press ran hot at night, which motor needed coaxing in winter. He nodded politely, took notes on cycle, times, but never once asked Alicia about her insulin breaks, never noticed that Diego always double-checked the line before anyone clocked in. The floor has a rhythm. Jason didn't hear it. Instead, he asked about trimming post-shift diagnostics, questioned the lockout, tagout protocols we ran since '09, pulled me aside in the break room to pitch a new rotation model that would maximize throughput. I started keeping a second set of records, not company logs, mine. Dates, skipped checks, safety measures ignored, parts deferred. I watched as he flagged a hydraulic alarm as a sensor error. When I pulled maintenance logs later that night, it wasn't a sensor, it was the pump itself. Jason spent more time smoothing graphs than listening to gears. Leonard praised him in weekly emails for streamlined process realignment. Meanwhile, production slowed, complaints rose, and the air on the floor got heavier. I didn't argue, I didn't warn. I just kept writing, photographing, filing. You can't teach experience in 6 Sigma slides. You earn it over years, by standing, close enough to hear when a bearing's gone dry before it seizes, by knowing who tightened the bolts last and which hands to trust with live current. Jason didn't see any of that, but I did, and I saw what was coming. There was no cake on my last day, no speech, no gold watch or framed certificate, just a limp handshake from Patricia and a deactivated badge that blinked red as I left the employee exit. Jason was already sitting at my desk when I came to collect my things, tapping away on his tablet. He barely looked up when he asked, "Any last advice?" I paused, keys in hand, and said, "Listen to the floor. The machines talk if you know how to hear them." He smiled like I'd handed him a riddle. I didn't bother explaining. In my locker, I left behind one thing, a laminated checklist taped to the inside of the door. It listed the daily inspection protocol I'd written 10 years ago. the same one Jason had already flagged as inefficient. Outside, the parking lot smelled like diesel and burnt oil, like it always had. But something about the way the wind moved across the asphalt made it feel final. I didn't go quietly because I was weak. I went quietly because I knew what came next. That night, I made 4 phone calls. Diego from machining, Alicia from assembly, Russell from night shift, and Sam from maintenance. My people. We'd weathered 3 corporate buyouts together and kept that plant running while others folded. Gave each of them an index card with my personal number on it. When things start to slip, I told them, when something doesn't sit right, don't report it to management. Call me. They didn't ask questions, they just nodded. It didn't take long. 2 weeks later, Diego called. They're skipping the diagnostics on press 2. 3 days after that, Alicia texted a photo of a jammed conveyor the new team, logged as cleared, but never actually fixed. Sam sent me screenshots of a denied parts order, flagged as non-critical. It was the emergency shutoff switch for the loading bay crane. No one above Jason seemed to care, but I was listening. And so were my boots still by the door, unpolished, ready. The first time I felt it, that unmistakable pulse of failure humming under the surface, it came through Diego's voice. They cut the hydraulic inspection to bi-weekly, he said, hushed like the supply closet had ears. New directive from upstairs. I didn't respond right away. Just opened my notebook and wrote it down. Date, time, specific change, source. Like I used to log oil pressure anomalies or shift discrepancies, but this was worse. This was systematic. 3 days later, Sam called. They denied my order for the backup generator capacitor. Said we'll manage till the quarterly check. I wrote that down too. Then I opened a fresh folder on my desktop, labeled it plainly, if they keep going. By week 3, Alicia sent a picture of a cracked safety housing zip-tied instead of replaced. Temporary solution, Jason's note read. I added that photo to the folder. Everything I saw confirmed what I already knew. They weren't fumbling through change. They were betting against the odds, banking that their risk calculations would squeeze out a few extra quarters, that nobody would notice until they were long gone, or until something bled. I gave them a chance. I drafted a professional email, addressed it to Leonard and Patricia. I offered to consult on the new protocols. I listed specific risks tied to the systems I'd built. I ended it with the cleanest sentence I could write. I believe your current trajectory compromises both safety and operational integrity. They responded within hours. Thanks, Kenny. We're confident in the transition. Jason's already made great progress. In other words, stay out. I stared at their message for a long time. Then I turned off my screen and sat in the dark. They thought I was bluffing, thought 22 years of sweat and scars meant I'd just crawl. Away with my boots and my pension. They didn't understand what they were touching. They were playing with fire, and I still had the blueprint. I made the call on a Tuesday morning. The inspector's name was Helen Barnes. Sharp, steady voice. No. Small talk. I told her who I was, what I'd built, and how it was being dismantled. I laid out the risk, the corners being cut, the systems they didn't understand but were already modifying. She asked for specifics. I gave them. Dates, missed inspections, a denied capacitor order that could shut down backup power. She listened, took notes, promised the board would conduct an unannounced inspection in the next 2 weeks. I hung up and sat there, watching my coffee go cold. For a moment, I expected to feel guilt, regret, something. But all I felt was precision. The inspection landed the following Thursday. I wasn't there to see it, but I knew from the texts pouring into my phone. Management had called a last-minute floor cleanup the night before. Diego texted, "They're scrubbing logs, fixing stuff that's been broken for months." When Helen arrived with her clipboard and 2 other agents, the place was spotless on the surface. But pressure systems don't lie. Safety switches don't rewire themselves. And operators trained to say too little always say too much. She caught patched hoses, mislabeled emergency switches, skipped inspections documented with forged signatures. Still, They passed, barely. She called me afterward. Most immediate risks were addressed, but something doesn't feel right. It's like they knew we were coming. I thanked her. Told her to keep her eyes open. 3 days later, a courier arrived at my doorstep. Envelope in hand, expression blank. Inside, a letter from Western Plains legal team. Allegations of interference, breach of confidentiality. A veiled threat couched in legalese. Cease contact with employees or face consequences. I read it twice, then placed it neatly beside my old safety manual. They wanted to scare me into silence. They didn't realize they'd just confirmed everything. I needed to know. They were afraid, and afraid men make sloppy decisions. So I sharpened my next move. Quiet, legal, lethal. They'd lit the match themselves. All I had to do was wait for the flame to reach the fuse. It was Russell who knocked on my door that Saturday morning. His hat was low, eyes darting around like we were in some kind of spy novel. He didn't say much, just stepped inside, sat at my kitchen table, and placed a black thumb drive between. I couldn't let it go, he said. I didn't ask questions right away. I poured coffee, sat across from him, waited. When a man brings you something like that, you don't rush him. Everything's on there, Russell said, voice low. Real maintenance logs, the ones we kept, not the ones they gave to the inspectors. Emails too, from Leonard, from Axiom's risk department. They've been planning this. I picked up the drive, turned it in my fingers like it might burn me. They're not just ignoring safety, he continued. They're modeling the risk, treating accidents like numbers, like acceptable collateral. I plugged the drive into my old laptop. Russell stood up. Paste. The first folder held 2 versions of the same inspection report, one clean, one chaotic. The dates matched. The content didn't. The second folder was worse, internal emails. Memos between Leonard and Axiom executives titled Strategic Risk Tolerance Modeling. One line stood out like a broken bolt in a live machine. Injury. Risk is offset by increased quarterly yield. Insurance premiums, earnings dip. Proceed with implementation. I stared at that sentence for a long time. The final folder held photos. The injured kid Russell had mentioned, barely out of high school. Bandages, a missing hand guard. A digital timestamp showing the repair order denied 2 weeks earlier by Jason with a single red comment. Not mission critical. They made him sign operator error forms while he was still sedated, Russell added. They're blaming the kid for it. I didn't speak for a while, because in that moment I wasn't just looking at documents. I was looking at intent. This wasn't a series of bad calls. This was architecture. Designed risk, executed indifference. They'd stopped being careless a long time ago. Now they were simply cold, profitable, and absolutely sure no one would catch them. They were wrong. We met at Frank's place, a detached little ranch outside of town where the streetlights don't reach and the neighbors keep to themselves. The kind of place where you can speak freely and not worry about the walls having ears. Diego was the first to arrive, followed by Alicia, Sam's older brother, and Russell again, carrying a 6-pack under one arm and a folder of notes under the other. No one said much as they filed in. No one needed to. The silence between us was agreement enough. We all knew what was happening inside that plant. I cleared the table and spread out printouts from the thumb drive. Memos, photos, denial records, falsified logs. I watched their faces as they took it in. Familiar names in unfamiliar contexts. Co-workers reduced to liabilities. Protocols reclassified as cost inefficiencies. I didn't bring you here to talk about strikes or protests, I said. This isn't about making noise. It's about facts, proof, timing. Russell nodded slowly. You're planning something. I'm planning everything. I laid out the plan like I used to lay out safety protocols. Precise, layered, quiet. Everyone would keep documenting, just like they'd been doing since I left. But now we'd sync our logs. Frank would act as drop point coordinator. We'd use off-site devices, no company Wi-Fi, no paper trails. No heroics, I said. If it feels risky, don't do it. Stay invisible. They're watching now. Alicia leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. What's the end game, Kenny? I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence hold its weight. Then I looked around at each of them. Men and women I'd worked with, sweated beside, protected. I give them one last chance to fix what they broke. If they don't listen, then we make sure someone who can, does. Diego cracked his knuckles. 2 weeks? 2 weeks, I confirmed. They didn't cheer, no one slapped the table. This wasn't a war room, it was a funeral for whatever trust we'd once had in that company. But as we left Frank's house that night, I knew one thing. For sure, I wasn't alone in this. And they weren't ready for what was coming. The first move was simple. I emailed George Lawson, a former client who now oversaw contracts for Meridian Energy, Western Plains' largest buyer. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but I knew George. He cared about quality, not quarterly optics. I didn't send accusations. I sent evidence, photos of defective valves that had shipped within the past 30 days, flagged by Russell and Diego. I asked only one thing: run your own quality audit. The second move was more official. I contacted Helen Barnes at the State Safety Board again. This time, I didn't voice general concerns. I submitted detailed logs, dates, times, photos, shift notes, email exchanges between Leonard and his supervisors. The kind of file that didn't suggest negligence. It confirmed it. Helen read in silence, then said, "This is going to trigger a higher-level review." I nodded once. Good. The third move was a gamble. I reached out to Jason Weber. We met at a diner 15 miles from the plant. He looked tired, worn down in a way that no MBA could prepare him for. He ordered coffee and sat quietly, avoiding eye contact. "I didn't call you to fight," I began. "I called because the next 2 weeks are going to change things." He blinked. "What do you mean?" I laid out what I'd done, quietly, methodically. Meridian's audit, the state review. Then I opened the thumb drive and slid it across the table. "Everything your name is attached to is part of this now." He stared at the screen, brows tightening. I didn't know. "You do now," I said. "You can keep pretending this is above your pay grade, or you can help me stop it." Jason didn't answer right away. He just kept scrolling. Then, after several long minutes, he said, "What do you need?" "Every denied request. Every email where they pushed you to skip steps. Build your own record, quietly." He looked up, eyes finally meeting mine. "I'll do it." The third move had worked. The trap was set. It was the #1 hydraulic press, the backbone of Western Plains' production line, that finally buckled. A catastrophic failure. No injuries, by luck alone. But the machine seized. Dead weight. In the center of the floor, and with it the entire schedule. Orders stalled. Managers scrambled. Whispers spread faster than emails. That night at 6:15 a.m., my phone rang. Leonard Wright. Strained voice. Polite urgency. "Kenny, we have a situation at the plant." "I've heard," I replied evenly. The shutdown had already made the rounds in every group chat. "We need your expertise," he continued. "The main press is down, and maintenance can't isolate the... We're losing hours, fast." "Should have called Sam," I said, "but you laid him off, remember?" Leonard exhaled like someone swallowing pride. "Can we set that aside for now? We'll bring you in as a consultant. Whatever you need." I paused. 300 an hour, cash. I bring my own team. Diego, Alicia, Russell. I make the calls. Total access to all maintenance logs from the past 6 months. Silence on his end, then a hollow, "Fine. Just get it done." I arrived at 9 a.m. The floor looked like a battlefield after the smoke cleared. Operators idle. Managers wide-eyed. The massive press sat silent, its failure bleeding panic into every department. Jason met me near the tool cabinet, shoulders tense, eyes relieved. "It's worse than we thought," he murmured. I walked the line in silence, studied the fractures in the hydraulic seals, the warped piston, the burn pattern on the relay boards. It wasn't one thing. It was everything. Layered neglect baked into steel and wiring. Leonard hovered as I examined the fault logs. "You can fix it?" I didn't look at him. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few times, and turned the screen his way. I just sent a report to Axiom's executive team, the State Safety Board, and Meridian Energy. Every risk, every lie, every denial. That's what it cost you. He went pale. Now, I said calmly, do you want this press running by Friday or not? While Diego and Alicia stripped down the hydraulic manifold, I stood in the break room with a thermos of coffee and a file on the table. I'd seen men fix broken bones with splints and patience. Machines aren't much different, only quieter about their pain. But people break in subtler ways. I pulled out my laptop, opened the folder labeled Last Straw, attached it all, emails. Inspection reports, falsified logs, Russell's thumb drive, Jason's signed affidavit, 17 documents, 3 video clips, 2 spreadsheets that would make any regulator's pulse quicken. I typed the subject line, Operational Risk Report, Western Plains Manufacturing. No angry paragraphs, no dramatic salutation, just 4 lines. Attached is documentation of continued systemic safety violations, internal correspondence regarding willful negligence, and evidence of manipulated inspections. Please confirm receipt. Kenny Harmon, former lead foreman. Western Plains Manufacturing, 22 years. No major accidents. I sent it to 3 places. Axiom's Executive Legal Counsel, the Oklahoma State Industrial Safety Board, and the VP of Compliance at Meridian Energy. Then I closed the laptop. Back on the floor, we were 3 hours into diagnostics. I knelt beside the control panel, wiped grime from the auxiliary intake sensor, and reconnected the override node. The press groaned back to life, slowly, like an old man waking after a hard winter. But it came alive. Jason hovered nearby. It's running. Not fully. Give it 10 more hours, then recalibrate the pressure seals. He nodded. An hour later, I noticed the change. Leonard's office, dark. Patricia, gone. 2 suits I didn't recognize walked in with clipboards and security badges. Someone from Meridian arrived, too. Then the auditors came. By the time I tightened the last bolt on the pressure rig, the damage was already done. Just not to me. Not to the floor. I packed my tools slowly. No cheers, no speeches. Just the low hum of machines returning to rhythm. I didn't watch the fallout. I built a system that protected people. They tried to kill it. I made sure it wouldn't die quietly. 6 months later, I still walk the floor every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:45 a.m., just before the shift change. There's no announcement, no grand entrance. I just step through the back entrance with my thermos in one hand and a small notepad in the other. I don't wear a badge. I don't need one anymore. The crew knows. They always did. The number 3 press hums like it used to. I pause beside it sometimes, letting the vibration carry through the soles of my boots. The rhythm is right again. Smooth even, steady. Machines don't lie, they just wait for someone to listen. Jason's still here, technically. He doesn't manage anymore. He observes, documents, reports. We speak now and then. He stopped wearing ties, started asking real questions. He's learning. The hard way, maybe, but learning nonetheless. The new operations director walks with me occasionally. He talks less and listens more. We replaced the inventory algorithm with a hybrid system I designed. Part software, part gut instinct. Alicia helped build it. Diego oversees training now. Russell is on the compliance team. Sam came back under a better contract. That felt right. The whiteboards on the wall track performance stats, not just numbers, but safety metrics, morale, polls, even birthdays. I didn't put them there, the floor crew did. The machines run better now because the people running them feel seen again. Heard. That matters. I don't sit in meetings. I don't report to a desk. I don't chase titles. I fix what's broken or I show someone how to fix it right. Sometimes I catch the newer supervisors watching me from the corner of their eye, wondering what the old man is still doing here. They don't hear what I hear. This morning, the number 2 milling machine made a faint click when it shifted gears, a sound most wouldn't notice. I flagged it in my notes, nodded to the shift lead, and moved on, because some things never change. The machines still talk, and I'm still listening.